Okay, here's Rent Carcass again. I'm going to do a quick video on Kamikazes. And I seem to have lost one of these pieces because I previously recorded this and, oh, there we go. Oops, I totally messed that up. I said the wrong thing. So let's zoom in here on the back side of the Japanese. That's right, I print these on single sheets. That way when there's updates, I can just replace one thing instead of printing the whole thing. Anyway, that's the back side of this Japanese sheet. You can see, I don't double copy. That way my replacements are cheaper. And let's move into this Kamikaze here. And of course, I can never get it just right. There we go. All right. Okay. Kamikaze. Japan. Special abilities. If enemy ships are within the sea zone of the Japanese homeland, including Okinawa, the Japanese may make up to 2 kamikaze attacks per turn. So that's up to 2, but they don't have to make 2. They could make 1, or none, or 2. To a game total of 6. So you get a maximum of 6. When they're gone, they're done. These are made at an attack of 7 with target selection versus surface ships, which is any ship that's not a sub, of 1 to 5. That includes transports, not surface warships, surface ships. Okay. So, let's throw in a quick example here. I apparently don't have any more US guys on the board, so all right. Kamikazes are an attack, not a defense. It specifically says an attack. So, they can be performed in 3 sea zones. So the U.S. home territory, the Japanese home territory, which is these 3 islands, Sea Zone 38 and Sea Zone 56, and Okinawa, which is Sea Zone 55. So for an example here, this is purely example. It could be anything, any kind of setup in your game. I'm going to show first, let's say this is the U.S.'s turn, right? So the U.S. has decided that these guys from down here, let's say that this transport's over here. There's Japanese Navy's all there, this transport and destroyer over here, right? So let's say they're not going to attack here. They're just going to bring these, there we go, 1, 2, 3. Okay, they're in here at their base. This whole Japanese Navy's over there. There's no blockers. These guys cannot reach here in a combat move because it's a move of 4, but they can reach here to be the next wave. So the U.S. is going to be trying to blockade and amphibious assault. So for the U.S. to blockade, all it needs is surviving ships in the sea zone that are 3 or more, that are warships. So the U.S. has split their forces, and this is the way it sits here, right? So they're going to amphibious assault with this stuff to there, and they're going to attack the screening force of this, which is just a torpedo boat destroyer sub, cruiser, light carrier, and a fighter with this Navy here. So what they're going to try to do is kill this Navy with this, and then amphibious assault and bombard with those 2 battleships. You cannot bring a kamikaze in here. It is not an attack. That would be a defense. It's not your turn. So these guys are out. However, since you're at an air base and you have 3 aircraft that can scramble, if you had a medium bomber that could scramble as well, but I only have fighters and tacticals in that location, so you can scramble into the sea zone on defense from an air base, but you cannot use kamikazes in defense because they are an attack. So what you could do is scramble this, right? but you cannot get these involved. So there's that example. Now let's say the turn's over. These guys have managed to non-combat move this stuff into here. Let's say they beat you up. And just for sake of arguments, you lost all that stuff and they lost all this. And they now have 3 surface warships. These guys are off the transport. Done, right? So now this is the US turn. This is what they have after they're done. Japan is essentially blockaded. Japan is blockaded. There's 3 surface warships on this side. Transport does not count. It's a surface, not a warship. And on this side you have that. Now let's say for sake of argument it's the Japanese turn, and you can use 2 of these 6. Right? So you could either move them in here, right? And whatever fleet can reach, or you can use them on this side because of their target selection. They're basically just a tactical bomber that attacks 1 round at 7, which is the same as attack, but its target selection is 1 to 5 on surface ships, including transports, carriers, the works. So you need to break the blockade on this side. But let's say this whole Navy's kicking around and you send it in there, right? You don't really need to throw in a Kamikaze on that side. You're probably going to beat them. So I'd probably throw the 2 Kamikazes on this side. Let's see if we can hit that damaged. Why am I doing that? I got these things. That damaged battleship, or the 2 intact ones. And then there's also this transport here. So you need a 1, a 5 to pick what you kill. Otherwise the defender picks, right? And if you get a 7 or a 6, that's when the defender selects. So let's say you just do a quick roll here, and you get a 7 and you get a 4. Sorry. So you get a 7 and a 4. So with the 7, the defender gets to pick what it loses, right? Now this is where it gets tricky, because you're not going to be breaking the blockade if you select the transport and then he just selects one of these, right? What you can do instead is you can select this one as your target select. It's gone, and now it's up to him or her to decide whether they're going to take a hit on one of these, or maybe they don't want to do that and they lose the transport instead. It's their choice, right? So that's their call. Now let's say, for sake of argument, just to show a different option, I just have the original setup fleet that the Japanese had, and these guys are in the transport here. So we got, what do we have here? 3 battleships, a carrier, a cruiser, and a handful of destroyers, and a couple of planes, right? You can probably beat this fleet, but you're not. And let's say this one is not there. That's a new example here. Well, if you want, throw these guys in there, right? Now you have 3 target selects, right? If you get lucky and you get 2 target selects, you can kill this carrier. You don't even have to hit the planes now, because they have nowhere to land, potentially, right? Depending on what's going on with the Russians. Actually, they can't land in Russia, so never mind. They're not allies, so they can't co-inhabit a location. They might be able to say join the KMT, but they only have a movement of 1 on defense, and that's not going to make it, right? So let's see. Let's say you got the same rolls, a 7 and a 4, with your target selection, and of your Kamikazes, right? So you got 2 hits. One's a defender choice and one is a attacker's choice. Well, let's go out on a limb and say that a really nice thing happened for the Japanese, and they rolled a 3 with their tactical bomber. That's 2 selected shots, right? Now, this is where things can get interesting, because the Japanese, using their target selection, can say, okay, one of these target selections is going to hit this transport and kill it completely, right? And then say you could damage the battleship. Or instead of doing that, you could eliminate the cruiser completely, right? Or a destroyer, if you needed to get rid of the destroyers for some reason. You cannot hit subs with aircraft. Oh no, you can in this game, never mind. Subs just can't hit your plane. But these kamikazes, there's no defense against them. You can't roll to kill the kamikaze because they're dead anyway. So you cannot take them as a casualty. They are not a physical unit. They are a token signifying an extra unit that gets added into this battle for 1 round only. All right, so that's your option. You can take that out, or you can take out the battleship completely with your 2 selections. Just say, okay, 2 hits on the battleships, that's what I pick, right? Or instead, 2 hits on the carrier. That's what I pick. These planes have nowhere to land, right? Now you've just forced your opponent to, instead of taking hits on the subs maybe, to take hits on these planes because he's going to lose them anyway. Right? These planes are rolling at a 6 on defense and a 5, but this thing's still got the target select of 1 to 3. Right? So he can start doing the same thing and start picking, oh, I'm going to hit your carrier, or I'm going to hit your battleship, or this cruiser's dead. Right? So there's some options on what you can do with the kamikazes. And like I showed, you cannot initiate an attack of your own. Should you have wished, let's say we're sitting like this, you could have instead sent 1 kamikaze here and 1 kamikaze here. If this kamikaze misses, you're still blockaded on this side, but if you can break this blockade and have them down to 2 ships on the surface or less, you're okay. All right, so those are a couple of options. Or instead, you could have said, you know what, I'm going to skip all that stuff, and the U.S. has got this transport down here and another destroyer, right? So I'm just going to, instead of sending 1 here and 1 here, I'm going to ignore those, and I can maybe throw this in here. Let's see if we can't kill that transport with the guys on it before it lands, right? But kamikazes must be used on the Japanese turn since they are an attack, not a defense. They do not act like a scramble. All right, I think I've beat this to death. Yeah, that should cover everything for the kamikazes. So just to sum it up here, kamikazes may be used in these 3 sea zones: 38, 56, and 55 around Okinawa. Kamikazes roll like as an attack, which means they may only be used in a combat move. Thus, you must be on your turn and not defending. So they're no good for a defense. If the Japanese were being attacked by the Americans here, you could not use your kamikazes in that. Right? Same with this. If this is an amphibious assault, you cannot throw a kamikaze against the Americans on defense of Japan. You may use it as an attack later on. So you know what I mean? What else is it? Their target selection is only on Navy. They cannot target select land units. They're only to be used in sea zones. And no land unit I know of operates in a sea zone unless it's stuck on a ship like a transport. You may not use them to target select aircraft in that sea zone. They are not dogfighting. They are dive bombing ships. Yeah, I think that covers the whole gambit. And yeah, so you have a maximum of 6. Once you use them, they're gone. Now you have 4 left. So you use them again, now you got 2 left. Or maybe you're more creative and turn 1 you use 1, turn 2 you use 3, right? 1, 1, 1, 1, whatever you need. Primarily, I like saving these Kamikazes for when Japan is under pressure and it needs to break either a blockade attempt or whatever. Because on the Japanese turn, if you decide, oh, I forgot to use my Kamikazes and I didn't break the blockade on both sides, now you're only collecting $7. So you feel like a bit foolish. Okay. And that's about it. The only other caveat I'm going to mention, and it just refers to scrambling. Let's say on this turn here, you've got British or German or Italians. It's unlikely, but you never know. These games, anything can happen depending on what strategy you're using. These aircraft may not scramble because they are not at a German or Italian base. They're at a Japanese base. They are a waste of time. They can attack on their own turn, not with the Japanese, and they cannot defend with the Japanese because they don't own the air base. The Japanese do. So keep that in mind. It applies to everybody in this game. All right, that's Kamikazes. You got 6 of them. Use them wisely. Save them unless you need them, but don't save them and never use them. Especially if the opportunity presents itself. Some games you never get a chance to use them, and some games you wish you had 18 more. It all depends on how things are going. All right, I'm going to leave you there. Hopefully this was informative. If you notice that I did anything incorrect with this, let me know. But these are not an actual physical unit. They are, so let's say there's no planes here. Right, in Okinawa, you can still scramble the 2. You don't need the planes to be there. Right, you can't say, oh, there's no tactical there, so you can only use 1 Kamikaze because there's a tactical. It doesn't work that way. All right, so, and let us end this here. And hopefully this was rather informative. I know it's a bit messy here. I'm just trying to figure out a different ways to show this and show the whole thing. So hopefully that worked. Any questions, comments, corrections, please fire them my way and I will respond to them each and all. All right. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.